Thanks very much for joining us tonight. I'm very pleased to be speaking with Nicholas and Chloe from the New York Review of Architecture, which of course we just sent out to our subscribers last month. I am like a massive fan of this magazine, and I'm so pleased that we got to send it out. I'd like to start by just checking in with you two and finding out, like, how did you first get involved with this extraordinary magazine?
Yeah, good question.
Yeah.
So
Well, rap, yeah, predates me by quite a lot. So I guess you should start. Yeah.
yeah, the neither of us were in the original crop of founders of the magazine. It was started in May of 2019, and I grabbed one out of the archive. It was at that point just an 11 by 17, or kind of close to like a. Oops, sorry, holding it upside down here. There we go. I guess that's like a A3 in for UK size. Um, and it was started by like five friends who were all kind of recent grads of architecture school and wanted to kind of stay involved with the culture. Um, I found out about it, funnily enough, through a suggested Instagram post that was advertising their first public event in October of 2019. And that was for issue number 5. And then I kind of kept on uh, hanging out with the magazine from then on there. It was first as a reader, then as a subscriber, then kind of working, contributing some writing, doing a little bit of guest editing for the newsletter, and when we transitioned into our current format, that was sent to well, the Stack subscribers. We kind of reconceived this as something that actually needed to be a real business if we were going to continue to publish. And so I joined on the publishing side as associate publisher in August of 2022. That was, yeah.
Excellent. And Chloe?
Yeah. I have been at Naira in my current capacity as deputy editor for about a year. Yeah, I believe I joined officially, yeah, May of last year. So I guess a year and a month. And prior to that, I had worked at Naira on the copy editing side. I copy edited um, an issue, and I proofread the inaugural issue of Lara, our special LA themed issue. So I was between jobs at the time, picking up and doing some freelance work, um, and just really enjoyed, um, yeah, really enjoyed, the work I was doing there. And, I was, copy editing these pieces. I was just like, this is, this is like one of the best magazines around. But Sammy Medina and the our EIC and I go back quite a ways. I had been his editor a few times at Art Forum, where I was a senior editor before coming to Naira. Um, so yeah, and we have kind of in similar circles and have known each other for years and had worked together in various configurations, one of us editing the other. So it was, yeah, it felt like a really natural fit, um, to kind of like formalize that collaboration.
Yeah. And I understand that it is a worker cooperative. So what does that mean in like the practical day-to-day running a thing?
Yeah. I mean, the co-op, funnily enough, it doesn't enter as much as you might think. So we are a worker cooperative. Anybody that is like a full-time employee or part-time up to a certain threshold is eligible to become a part owner, worker owner of the company. But we still do have what you would think of as kind of like the traditional business hierarchy, right? Like we don't have to sit down and have a committee meeting for every decision that gets made. Where it, I think, enters is it's clear that anybody that is working on this is really involved in every little aspect of the production because we're such a small team, but also is committed to the mission of the magazine and making sure that it's something that can be sustainable like long into the future. Right.
You mentioned just now the difference between like full-time and part-time. Are you two both full-time employees?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
We so the kind of, I'd say, core team of myself and our publisher Nicholas, Chloe, our editor in chief, Sammy, we're all full time. We have some part time employees that help with like making sure we can get the thing in the mail each week,
Hmm.
uh, and craft all of the kind of like social media, the engagement stuff that is necessary for any magazine working today, really. And then also some people that are working functionally as like on a kind of specific task, right? So like our web developer, right? He's someone who is like an essential part of the team, but is not working on our website 24/7, if that makes
Our
sense.
art director as well. Yeah.
Sure.
Their
They're more like
contract.
on. Sorry, go on, Chloe.
Oh no, go ahead. Yeah, they're like our web developer and our art director. Yeah, they're they're contract employees because we need them we need them very badly sometimes certain times in the month, but not on a kind of rolling 9 to 5 basis. When I started at Naira as managing editor about a year ago, I was originally a 4 day a week employee, and very soon it became clear that this was not a 4 day a week job. It was like a 6 or 7 day a week job. Um, eventually I was able to kind of renegotiate um my time commitment
Yeah.
and
That's
move up to be reclassified as a full-time 5 day a week employee just to reflect the work I was already doing. And I think that that's something that's like become clearer uh and clearer in the last year or so, is just the kind of commitment that doing all this takes.
and I
Um
think it actually plays into the trajectory of us, the whole like history of the magazine, probably a lot of small magazines, where it goes from something that you think you can do kind of just in the off hours in your free time while you're doing other things. And the more serious you want to get with it, the more it snowballs, the more time you find it taking. And I think part of the usefulness of the co-op is it is a structure that allows us to be like accountable about the time that we are actually putting
exactly.
in.
Yeah. Yeah.
We can all come to each other and recognize, okay, we're actually, where do we need to put the resources? Because we are the people doing the work day to day. We know how much time something is taking, rather than kind of just having to meet abstract expectations from, possibly like a corporate owner that, isn't actually sitting down and doing any of this work.
Yeah,
Sure. Yeah.
like we don't have KPIs or anything like
Yeah.
that. And I would say, coming from there is quite a bit the question of, whether the co-op structure, how and if so it manifests in kind of the workaday reality of Naira. Like, to me, I don't know. I do feel like there is um a kind of like ethos of workplace democracy that does percolate through. I mean, and both, like I do think we do discuss decisions, um, yeah, as a team, um, yeah. I mean, what is the Oscar Wilde quote? The problem the problem with socialism is it takes too many meetings. And we do have a lot of meetings.
But if we need to get something done, we're empowered to do so. It's not, yeah.
You can get on and do it. I mean, like, because I take your point. Like, it's a small team, 4 people full time. That's small,
Yeah, it is
but
small.
it's considerably bigger than a lot of the magazines that we send out on Stack. I mean, a lot of the magazines that we send out don't have any full time staff. Like it's all being done by people like in their spare time, and I think that speaks to something about the New York Review of Architecture that I really appreciate, which is just like the ambition of the thing. Like this isn't a magazine that is happy to be somebody's kind of like, side hustle or whatever. Like this is actually aiming higher than that. And I wonder like where does that come from? Where does that sense come from within the team?
Yeah, I mean, I'll just say this is kind of all credit to the editors in a lot of ways, right? Like in terms of the editorial ambition and the ambition to, produce a significant amount of writing that is of, yeah, such an exquisite caliber and that connects to a general audience. So there's always been an ambition to have a wide readership, into for the very boring reasons of, for businesses, it's if you're running on a subscription model, you want lots of subscribers. It's very good to have, but that's never been the kind of driving force behind the ambition. I think it's always been kind of like an editorial one. So Chloe can really speak to that probably much better than I can.
No, I think I can't speak for Sammy, my co-editor, but yeah, compulsion maybe. Kind of yeah, I don't know, folly adieu. Yeah, it's yeah, I think Sammy and I are both pretty like uh yeah, I think we've been accused of being perfectionists. And we edit everything very rigorously. Um, there's a, kind of we have a system of what we call top editing, bottom editing that I, I took over from my time at Art Forum. So, both of us, basically every text that gets published in Naira gets read by either him or me first, then we flip. Um, then we send it back to the writer. Um, then, the main editor does a couple rounds with them, then it gets copy edited, then it gets proofread. So, um, yeah, everything just it's a kind of old school editorial process with yeah, a lot of labor, a lot of time. And yeah, I think I hope it reflects in the product that you read at the end. And in terms of the ambition, in terms of the length of the issues, the word counts, which seem to, be getting higher and higher. Um, yeah, I think Sammy does have a desire to kind of outdo himself every time. And then I think also the fact that it's a bi-monthly publication and we're making people wait quite a while for their next Naira. So, we want to give them, a lot of we want to give them a lot of, meat to chew on.
Well, you
Um
certainly do that. You deliver the meat, and but it's not just look, this isn't just about volume, right? Like there's like a particular tone, and there's a reader's letter um that you publish at the front of this issue, and it says something that I really like, and I know that you like it too because you pulled it out and ran it down the edge of the page here. So it says, "Oh, joyous
our
compendium."
publisher did that.
It's on target, original, unsparing, overwritten, author-aggrandizing
Yeah.
prose. I mean, like that hits it on the button. Like,
Yeah.
when you commission a writer, are you saying, do you know what? Go big. Like go big. And then when you send an edit back, are you sort of like, come on, give me some more in this? Or is this literally just people know that this is what Naira is all about, and so they write for you like that?
Mm.
Um, it's a great question. I think hopefully my goal is the latter, more and more. And as, more people kind of become familiar with the publication and they, have a sense of I don't know, to use an overuse, the vibe, that people will kind of put on their like let their inner Naira sing. Sometimes it is a question. I mean, it really depends. Sometimes it's wanting to kind of pull big arguments out of people. Um, and just finessing things in the line editing. While that said, we do really, at the end of the day, it is, even if it's a Naira piece, at the end of the day, it is the particular author's piece, and if they don't, if they feel like it's not their voice, at the end of the day, we do have to, we do respect that. But yeah, it's always a negotiation. I think, um, and then, I mean, there are times when depending on the writer, I mean, sometimes we're pulling people, we definitely pull certain writers. Sometimes it's, oh, take it down a notch, here, or, depending on, the subject matter, or, if there's really a very like strident part of one essay, and then you want to kind of like modulate. But yeah, I mean, the goal, that writer of that letter to the editor, yeah, he really he really has our number. Like, he really gets it. I thought, yeah.
Oh, sorry, go on, Nicholas.
Okay, there's, I think one aspect is that a lot of uh, the writers that we're commissioning are not uh, architectural writers, first and foremost, right?
Yeah, point.
Not people who are coming out of the kind of cast of the trade press that is probably been trained in architecture and design, is used to speaking about these discourses kind of to the same audiences always. And I think, in conversations I've had with, well, Chloe and Sammy, just through the making of the magazine, it's very clear that we really try and treat the publication as a forum to let people investigate architecture, the city, space, design, and see how it lands with the concerns they're already interested in and already writing about, and kind of push them to run the two things together. And a good example, we had a now regular contributor of ours, Aaron Timms, really came to us as a food writer mostly. He was writing, and his first piece for us was writing about food halls and the kind of proliferation of them around New York, and what that means both for dining culture and like real estate. But he's also wrote a piece for us on like the lack of public bathrooms in the city. So it's expanding well beyond his kind of like the initial interests that he was writing for us about.
Well, I guess
In this issue, he wrote
alpha and omega of
Yeah, yeah,
when
yeah, yeah.
when there's food, you might need a bathroom. So I guess, but yeah, no, totally. That's a really good point. I think we wanted, yeah, the goal has always been to kind of avoid a kind of narrow professionalism, um, or like, yeah, sort of just like competent, yeah, competent. I feel bad using this word yeah, I feel like the people, oh, it's so academic, and I feel like it could be, it can be lazy a little bit to just tar something as academic. And it can be kind of anti-intellectual, but with all those caveats, yeah, I mean, I think what we didn't, we didn't, the type of writing that, and this is not particular to architectural writing or architectural discourse at all. I mean, you see it in the art world, where I kind of come out of a lot too. Just people, the type of writing that is signaling, being credentialed and competent, within one's narrow field of specialization, and that's really the work that the writing is doing, and it's not really endeavoring to do anything else really beyond that. And I think that's the type of thing, that we want to avoid. Um, and that's not a knock against people that work in universities or any, like, we work with a lot of people, who have PhDs, and we work with a lot of people who don't. And yeah, we really kind of see it as a, you know, it's a writer's magazine. And yeah, I think some of our most, not all, but a lot of our you know, most surprising and interesting exchanges with writers have been writers who don't who yeah, don't necessarily come from an academic background in architecture, either architectural practice or architectural history and theory.
Yeah,
Um,
I mean they're definitely the ones that land with me. So you mentioned Aaron Timms just now. So he wrote Rats Amore in this issue, and I also a few issues ago loved a story called Dome Improvement by Sam Chris, which
Chris, yeah.
was so you know that was it. I think both of them like there's an element of architecture in there. So in Rats Amore, like you know you're talking about like the physical structure of the city and this piece dome improvement was like you know it's talking about kind of like these geodesic domes but really that piece is about like this crazy character Buckminster Fuller and so then it's sort of Sam Chris who's a writer who I really love being given the space to kind of tell that story and get into it when you're commissioning these kind of like you know the big pieces that you go really long with like what's your sort of what's the kind of recipe? What are you looking for in a story that you think is gonna be particularly Naira?
That's all you, Chloe.
Oh boy.
Well, if while you think about that, I mean, can I just add one thing or a bit of flavor to both Dome Improvement and Ratsumore? You know, Ratsumore, Aaron is going. He's talking both about the big policy objectives of our current mayoral administration in New York, but he's also going to rat school and like sitting in the room with other people who are kind of being trained to spot rats in their neighborhood to deal with rats infestations, all these other things. And with Dome Improvement, so there's a kind of like real groundedness in that it's not just a purely historical, purely kind of speculative mode of writing, or actually engaging with contemporary topics. But with Dome Improvement, this is where it's something that I think really connects back to what we were saying previously, where the audience is not necessarily just a academic or professional audience; it's also a popular audience. I have training in architecture and design. I worked in architecture, and Buckminster Fuller is like a well-known figure. He is, referenced quite frequently in historical, like history classes. And Sam's piece gave me a completely new understanding of the man. It was always first as more of this kind of possibly slightly odd, but really, really intelligent and kind of ahead of his time technologist.
Visionary technologist, all this, kind of,
And
yeah,
he's
bit of a
really,
sacred cow.
yeah,
Uh,
plays a bit of a charlatan and a bit of a kind of snake oil salesman in some ways, which is
yeah.
like, yeah, it's really, nice kind of flavor and context to add for both people who are going to be encountering him for the first time, but also people who are, very familiar with some of the figures or ideas that we're writing about. So anyway, sorry, Chloe, to the actual.
No, no, no. So thank you. That actually helps me think. Yeah, I mean, I think like, well, there's no recipe per se, but I mean, yeah, I mean, I guess, yeah, often a tablespoon of contrarianism for sure. Like with the Bucky Fuller piece by Sam. Also a similar um in 45 issue we just published the uh Wrecking Ball column, which is our dedicated attack column in the back of the book. Um Andy Battle wrote a you know very thoughtful but I'd say quietly scathing uh review of Jane Jacobs's The Death and Life of the Great American Cities, which is another kind of, you know, well, sacred text of, um, urbanism and yeah, so I mean I do kind of, maybe it's puerile of me, but I do kind of get a thrill when you know, when we have these contrarian pieces about figures like Fuller, like Bucky Fuller, Jane Jacobs, and I think especially for me because don't come from a like architecture background, pieces like that, uh, as a reader really appeal to me because it's like, okay, I might not know. I know who Jane Jacobs is, and I know who Buckminster Fuller. These are very famous people that people with a sort of broad education and know a bit about architecture and a bit about cities now. So I think pieces like that, um, in terms of like a reader, the question of readership, it appeals to I think the kind of somewhat broader audience, um, that we're hoping kind of I think pieces like that meet that audience. And then other ingredients in the recipe, I don't know. Yeah, so like kind of what I was saying, like a certain, I think a dose of negativity, and but then also I would say humor and beauty, maybe like equal parts, those
Mm,
things.
totally.
Um, Tim's and Chris are really beautiful writers. Yeah, on the level of prose, like I like prose to be, even a little bit, even sometimes a little indulgent, a little belletristic. I don't think that's a bad thing. Yeah, so I would say negativity, humor, and beauty are the things that I like in a Naira piece. I don't know. Also, I mean Sam and Aaron, I don't know, they're both not American. Maybe. Um, yeah, engaging writers and other the broader Anglosphere outside of the United States has proven fruitful. Maybe Americans just can't write. I don't know.
I'm not having that. We
No,
can't.
no. Yeah. Um,
But I think you bring you bring up a really interesting point because so um so Aaron may not be American, but clearly he's in New York. I mean, like
yeah,
Nick, as you say, he's like, he's attending like the rat school. And actually, it strikes me that New York is a really important character in this magazine. I mean, like there aren't many cities in the world that people feel so kind of, I don't know, familiar with and like emotionally attached to that they could want to really get into it. And one of the things I love about the magazine is it makes me feel, it kind of gives a sense of like this sort of cool insider New Yorker thing where I mean, it's years since I've been there, but I get a little feeling that like, I might be part of it. What role do you think the city plays in your magazine?
totally. Yeah, it's funny. It's very attached to, like you said, but also like totally alienated from. And that's kind of the like, yeah, dialectic there. Yeah, what is it they say in Sex and the City? Like, New York is the fifth friend, the fifth character in Sex and the City. Yeah, I think, Nick, do you have any thoughts on that? I'm gonna.
Yeah, I mean, there from the beginning, I think it's always been very rooted in New York. So in the back of the book, and in actually some previous issues, it was closer to the front. There's a column called Skyline that is current events dispatches. So when the magazine first started, when it was this, just A3 front and back,
Project.
uh, the most amount of pieces that were in there were all little Skyline dispatches. And at the time, it was specifically covering like exhibition openings, lectures, conversations that were happening at like architecture schools around the city. And then kind of in the general East Coast conurbation, because there's Princeton and Yale and New Haven that are kind of lobbed on and easily accessible by train. And so that's been there from the beginning, but I think where the focus has shifted is it's gone from something that was just focusing on the architectural culture in the city to the city at large and general cultural currents that are happening within it. The other thing I think is almost like the our friends at the New York Review of Books, the things you are writing about, I mean, it's a little bit different there because they're, you know, specific, they're not writing about the city or cities in general, but are the things we are writing about are not exclusive or fully unique to New York. There are unique manifestations of the kind of trends and dynamics that we're seeing and that we're writing about that are particular to the city. But I think a lot of a lot of the stuff we're covering, you can think about horizontally happening in many other places around the world. So hopefully there's that, that back and forth between feeling like you are really in New York City, but being able to, or in a New York scene, but being able to use those ideas and think about them through wherever our readers are. Because,
Yeah.
you know, we have I'd say probably the majority of our readers are in New York. But we have actually quite a wide readership across the country and the world even. Obviously, I mean, you're in the UK.
Yeah. Hopefully, this is
Made it
proof
to
of
you.
concept. Yeah, we hope it's. Yeah, I mean, we hope it's of interest to readers who don't live in New York. While still keeping, while still having a sense of that. This is coming from somewhere. Um, that it's, you know, situated in a place. Um, but yeah, hopefully it's coming from New York, but it doesn't necessarily like it's uh it doesn't necessarily stay there. Yeah, I mean it's I think we have like I mean it's similar to the sort of problematical relationship we have to the architect. I feel like every word in our every word in our title is sort of we have a problematic relation to, except maybe the of. I don't know, like because actually for me review, I guess I actually don't really have a problem with, but yeah, I don't know. It's like the architecture thing. It's like we want it to be architecture, but also not just architecture. We want it to be New York, but not just New York. And I feel like actually those two things sort of like, this might sound really weird, but like they kind of produce alibis for the other in an interesting way that allows us to do a lot of stuff. Because it's like we can be like, well, okay, that we want to, you know, talk about, I don't know, you know, say the mayoral race in New York, or, you know, all this, you know, all this, you know, city politics and all, you know, all this corruption. And it's like, well, that's not architecture, but it's definitely New York. And then there are cases where, you know, the vice versa is possible. So I feel like there's constantly, like Nick was saying, this back and forth, and they're constantly kind of, producing alibis for the other that lets us like do some interesting things in those kind of like in those interstices, I
Yeah.
guess.
It's like a filtering device too, where it's like we're seeing things that are happening in New York, and we can write about something because it's fulfilling, as I was saying, that like New York criteria. But I mean, we've published many things that are also not rooted in New York at all. Stuff that's about things in Chicago. Obviously, we had an LA special edition. Now, obviously, that was, you know, kind of all LA centric. But even in there, we published about things that were happening in uh, Orange County, uh, California, going to Colorado, and
Yeah.
kind of urging outside and tracing the connections wherever they may be. There was an essay about I think it was Fifth Column, right? The Thomas piece, Chloe,
Oh yeah.
about a Tuscan
One of my
design,
favorite.
Tuscan styling, that how it has moved from or landed at this new Wegmans grocery store in Lower Manhattan. But he also goes through Tony Soprano's house on The Sopranos, and the essay ends at a synagogue in the old Jewish ghetto in Rome. So, it's really weaving this kind of large tapestry of uh, different routes and different networks that are not exclusively New York, but it did start there, right? And that's that filtering.
I just
I love writing about fake. I love it when we publish things about like fake things, like Tony Soprano's house. Like I love like fake. I love writing about fake interiors and fake buildings in TV and movies. Partially in small part, I suppose, because everyone has access to those images, you know.
Sure. So I want to just take a moment to say to everyone, if you have a question that you'd like to ask Chloe or Nicholas, please just stick it in the chat so I can come to you. But I'm aware we have 20 minutes left, and I've not asked you about rats yet, which is crazy because that should have been the first question.
Wow.
So so tell me, what is it with this magazine and rats? What's going on?
You want me to give the history, Chloe?
Yeah. You were
So
there.
it
Yeah.
started with issue 22. So this is the first time that rats appear in the magazine, and it was connected to this is Naira version 2. So you saw version 1, we went to the kind of this pamphlet style thing, and then version 3 is the one we've been talking about today. There was an essay by Kate Wagner, who is currently the architecture critic for The Nation, but is probably most famous for her McMansion Hell blog that she created. Writing an article for us arguing that Scabby the rat, which is that inflatable rat that blows up outside construction sites that are using anti-union labor or scab labor, that Scabby is actually the best architecture critic. And so when we were redesigning the magazine from this pamphlet style to the current newspaper broadsheet, there were discussions about how the graphics were going to change, what was going to happen there, and there was kind of a determination made that, well, New York Review of Architecture can be kind of a stuffy name. It seems like something that's like very serious and staid and might be seen as like not approachable to someone who is not in those professional networks. And so we had to pair that with some kind of really accessible, enticing graphics, right? And the rat, the Nirat, became the mascot. It wasn't actually, I'd say, from the first issue we did of this new format, which was issue 31. It wasn't guaranteed we were keeping the rat forever, but like 2 issues in a row, and then it was kind of like, well, dang, now we're stuck with it, right? We just got to do it for a third. I think eventually the Nirat will have some kind of friends mingle in, but also rats are,
Yeah,
so
I want there to be pigeons.
yeah, we need some pigeons. So archetypally connected to New York, and as I always like to say, rats really have a different understanding of the city. They are literally in the walls. They're underground. They have different ways of moving throughout urban space that humans don't regularly access. And so, yeah, when we're kind of like looking behind the face of things, there's kind of an apt metaphor there. So, yeah, it's many different kind of covalent reasons, but it all started with issue 22. So.
Yeah, there's the kind of like little kind of nod to labor history, and then I think just the kind of like abjection of the rat um is something readers something that we like and something readers respond to.
Totally. And so Nicholas, you were saying that so you made the shift over to the broadsheet format.
Yeah.
Was that also the point where the yellow came into it?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So the yellow, this is something that proves that constraints produce wonderful creative results. Newspaper or the printer we are using, they're a mass market newsprint shop. They print a lot of like foreign language dailies here. So for the Hasidic community, the Korean newspapers, the Chinese newspapers that are all throughout New York, they're used to printing tens of thousands of copies a day, every single day for
High
lots.
volume, really fast.
Really, yeah, no proofs, no turnaround, or no kind of interaction with them. It's you send the file and you pick it up. We are almost guaranteed their smallest client, and we were definitely for a while. We've grown a bit, so maybe there's someone smaller than us, but probably still are. Anyway, it where the yellow comes in is it ensures that we are only ever printing two colors. So there's not going to be registration issues having to do kind of multi-color runs. It's just black and yellow. And occasionally we have done kind of full color photography. Sometimes there are special inserts or things that are different colors, but it's just kind of was an economizing choice at that point. And in that, when you're thinking about the print production, it's going to be black, it's going to be yellow, cyan, or magenta. And so we said, okay, pick one of the three, and yellow won out.
And then I noticed that, so you had, you mentioned it already, Lara, or I think that Chloe, you pronounced that differently, like
Is it Lara?
Lara. Okay, so all right, so
Well, I think because our art director is named Laura. So oftentimes it's like I feel like my colleagues and we often like overemphasize Lara, the LA version of the magazine, because if you otherwise it can sound like Laura, like we're talking about our colleagues. So I think I think that's it's sort of just ingrained now that I say Lara.
yeah, but so Lara is
Yeah.
green.
Yeah.
So are we dealing
She's
with
great.
like different production capacities there? You trust that printer to print your green?
No, funnily enough, if you look so this was the March-April issue of 2024. You look in the February issue of 2024, we did color tests in the back. We had a wheel with different shades of green to test the registration. So this was where we determined, okay, well, it can't just be yellow. Like the yellow has become so associated with New York. We need to do something different. And yeah, we went with the green. In If you go to our website and look at the like Lara articles, the green actually registers a bit more kind of like neon, almost like
Neon.
green screen green. So it turns out a
Uh,
little darker on the page, but there is that kind of connection with the chroma key green in LA, this kind of like hyper real CGI.
Green screen. Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, that was the choice there. But actually it is the same printer. And that's where like when we got more confident experimenting and working with them consistently, I think we're able to kind of do other things now and do kind of like special projects. But
Sure.
it's still the same, where that's why we did the test in the previous issue, or the issue just before it, to say, okay, so if we specify this color mix, how's that going to come out? Because and even one issue to the other, sometimes there's variations. This is just like what happens when you have a print magazine, and that's okay. I mean, we accept this. This is natural. But
so how many issues of the LA Review of Architecture have you done now?
so we've
Just
only
one.
done the one special issue so far.
Right.
We're working on our second right now.
Which is insanity. I mean, like we were just talking about the fact that you're four people making like this magazine based in New York. Like, where does the idea then come from? Like, I know, let's do a whole other magazine for a city on the other side of a continent.
Totally.
Uh,
I feel like I've been talking about. Go ahead.
no. I mean, the decision I actually can't release because the first thing I did for Naira was proofread the first Lara, so it predates me, like how the original, how the idea to do Lara originally came to pass. I mean, I actually can't really speak to that.
Sorry, I'd forgotten that. It originally was an idea to just kind of like try try an experiment. Just try and go to another city, land somewhere, see what we can generate from it. But I'll say it was not always going to be a standalone issue. So there were, I think in the very first early conversations around it, we were going to do it as an insert. And it was going to be, kind of a few essays, a few pieces looking at LA, that something that would have been shipped along with the a kind of regular Naira issue. And as the project, got going and snowballed, all of a sudden it's like, oh, I think we have enough material here
Typical
for a
Naira fashion, yeah.
whole standalone Naira or Lara.
That was our
Um,
longest issue ever, right?
at the time, it was actually, yeah. So we were working with.
No, even still, right? No, have we
I
pushed past
we
it?
might have passed it for us,
Yeah,
but it's we were working with people who were based in LA. There was a guest editor, Mimi Zeiger, who was like collaborating and advising on this. So it wasn't just us flying in from New York and having no experience or context about what LA is and imposing our vision on it. It was very much like still trying to take the same model we have in New York, which is a rooted engagement with the city and the place, and produce something around it. But yeah, we had I think a much bigger response to it than we thought, which
yeah,
was heartening, but it's also like, oh crap, okay, we got to do another one then.
yeah.
Okay, so you've got another issue of Lyra probably in the works at some point. Did I
Yeah.
also see that you popped up at the Venice Biennale?
Yeah, we did. There was we had a little kind of collaboration with an installation there called Speaker's Corner. It's something that was produced by Chris Hawthorne, who is a contributor of ours, former architecture critic for the LA
For the
Times,
LA Times, yeah.
but is now at Yale, and he came across an element of the original architecture biennial or biennale in 1980 that was called the Critics Corner, and it was just a place where kind of the leading critics of the day curated the exhibition away from the main, most famous part, the Strada Novissima.
Strada Novissima, yeah.
And he wanted to restage criticism, as he put it. And he discovered this in the process of researching an essay for us, a book review. So there was kind of like a natural partnership there. But yeah, no, it was a great time. We got to go spend a couple days in Venice and packed a bunch of copies into boxes and checked them on the plane and schlepped
Their
them.
faces and schlepped, yeah.
So
So
this is
Arrows around.
yeah, this is what's great, about the magazine is it's something that because of like the format we chose in a lot of ways, we don't need to necessarily be too precious with it. So we can pack, a couple hundred copies into boxes and just, pop up at a party somewhere and say, hey, take, have it. Which is not the case if you were producing something that was like, a nice perfect bound, like 70-page thing that, cost $50 or something like that, or €50.
No, of course, yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, look, you can probably tell that like I'm just a mega fan of what you're doing. I think it's so cool. I love the fact that you've just got like all this text on these big pages, and it's being like worked over so intensely. You can really feel it, like that. You can feel the care and attention, and I think you can just feel the fun as well. Like you sometimes when you're reading a magazine, you get a sense that the people making it are really enjoying themselves. And like, I don't know if that's the case for you, but it
Yeah.
feels like it. That like in this issue, you've got like the rat jumping down the holes to like shortcut pieces, and even just your thing of like the tiny one sentence also bios at the end of stories. Like,
Yeah.
it's just care and attention, and like you sort of don't need to do that, but that for me is where the joy comes from in this magazine.
Well,
Totally.
credit to Nicholas, our publisher, on the rats jumping down the holes. That was all. He was having so much fun with those. Like, yeah, I like those little I like those moments a lot. And something going back to something we were talking about earlier, the name does sound so serious. And like if I'm meeting someone at a party or and I say like the New York Review of Architecture, people often sometimes assume it's like a very old publication, like there's something that's been around since the 50s or something, and they'll say like, "Oh yeah, like I think I've read that, or they confuse it with, architectural record or something. So it has this almost like, I kind of like the sort of like performative stodginess of the name, and then what you're actually getting is something a lot more, you know, uh, it's got jokes and cartoons, and yeah, I like that. I like that kind of bait and switch. I find it charming.
Well, and to go back to a question you asked earlier, about the like, how does the worker cooperative land in real time? Like those little elements are things that those little jokes, the gags, that's stuff that often is like things we throw around between all of us and are just workshopping and coming up with ideas about what to do there. Those the bios you mentioned, that the approach to the byline, that's been there not I think almost since the beginning, and it was actually an effort to just like really cut down on the amount of words because so many times author bios can be uh, so long, and as Chloe was talking about with a lot of articles, just demonstrating kind of credentials and importance. And we really prioritize. It ties back into the whole editorial, I think, vision. It's like it's prioritizing what they wrote and the arguments they're making in the piece and how they're doing it, rather than you are reading, the tenure of X, Y, and Z. And yeah.
And so are you writing those lines yourselves, or is it because like a lot of it, often the time it's like it's really quite personal. Like so is this stuff that you know about them, or do you get them to write the
We
line?
get them to write it. We get them to write it. We usually, if it's a, if it's a repeat contributor, they know the drill. If it's a first time contributor, we prompt them in the edit that we send back. We prompt them to add a line. We say like we want them to be, ideally playful, funny. Sometimes we'll send examples. Um, and we'll say like, often they're funny, often they refer to something in the piece, and yeah, 9 times out of 10 the writer like totally nails it. Um, I think there's been, once very, very few occasions we might suggest something and like this could be really funny for your one line bio, but that almost never happens. I think people get people once they read it. Ideally, people that, write for us have read us before. So they kind of know. Hopefully they have a sense of like what those are like.
Sure.
Uh,
Yeah, they're probably writing that in their head the whole time. The whole
yeah.
time they're writing their piece, like they're like, oh, shall I
Yeah.
talk about walking my dog? Shall I talk about like washing the dishes?
Yeah, yeah. Oftentimes yeah, like either us or the writer, it will emerge, like the line for that will emerge in the editorial process.
Yeah.
Because it's like, oh, oh, what if you referred back to that? That'd be funny.
Yeah.
Um, you know.
Well, look, thank you again for making the time to talk to us about this tonight, or today, as it is for you. And yeah, just know that I'm a massive fan, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what you do with this magazine. I just think that, keep going. It's amazing.
Thank you so
Thank
much
you
for
so
having us, and
much for
thanks
encouraging.
everyone for joining us and listening in. Hopefully this was a good engaging conversation.
Perfect. All right. Okay. Thank you very much, everybody. And I hope I'll see you all again soon. Cheers.
Cheers.